Assalamu alaikum, sir.
Walaikum Assalam, Zareen. I'm sorry I could join late today.
That's fine, sir. So maybe start with the recaps.
Yes, please.
Okay. So can we please start with the recaps?
Yes, ma'am.
Zia and Ashish.
Yes, ma'am. Assalamu alaikum, sir. Assalamu alaikum, ma'am.
Zia Hassan,
Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir.
please start. Zia.
Good morning,
Zia, you are speaking from which place?
sir. Lucknow.
Lucknow. Okay, Zia. How are you? Are you okay?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'm fine.
And your family also?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Lucknow. This
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Yes.
Please start.
Good morning. Yes, sir. Yes. Good morning, everyone. My name is Mohammad Zia Hassan, and today I'm going to present the recap of the previous class. The discussion of the previous class started with power and authority. Power is the ability of a person to exert influence on other people, whereas authority is the right of a person to take decision and give orders. Also, authority is related to the position of a person in the organization, whereas power is related to the person's ability, experience, and expertise. In organization, some people exercise power who may not have the authority. Then we have discussed the different sources of power, where the first source of power was reward power. Reward power is influencing others by reward. The compliance of work is demanded through rewards. These rewards can be promotion, incentives, or other benefits. Then we have coercive power. Coercive power is influencing others by forceful manner. Here the compliance of work is demanded through punishments. These punishments can be reduction of salary or demotions. Coercive power is opposite of reward power. Then we have legitimate power. Legitimate power is influencing others by positions. It is basically derived from the formal position of a person in the organization. For example, VC of our university and chairman of different departments enjoy legitimate power because of their position. Then we have expert power. Expert power is influencing others by expertise. This power is enjoyed by a person by the virtue of his knowledge and skills. For example, a production manager with specialized skill in marketing can influence the people of marketing department. Then the last source of power is referent power. Referent power is influencing others by references. This power is enjoyed by a person who is attached or close to someone important in the organization. They have the power to use their reference. For example, the secretary of a doctor considers himself as powerful because we are totally dependent on him to see the doctor. After this discussion on sources of power, Sir commented that all these sources of power can be classified into two broader categories of powers, that are personal power, which includes expert and referent powers, and positional power, which includes rewards, coercive, and legitimate power. Many times, personal powers emerges out of expertise and charisma. But how can we acquire this charisma? It comes with achievements. Sir then gave the example of Sachin Tendulkar, a charismatic personality of cricket who acquired his charisma by hardcore achievements. Then we have discussed about the two interpretation of referent powers, where the first interpretation of referent power is when the people refer to you as a role model and that gives you power. For example, many people follow Sachin Tendulkar as a role model for his expertise and charisma. And the second interpretation of referent power is in organization there are many power centers. In AMU, VC's office is one such power center. And all those people who are associated with these power centers enjoy more power. Sir then gave the example of personal secretary of VC who is at the same level of assistant registrar, but he enjoys more power because of his association with VC's office. Sir then concluded the topic by asking which source of power is better, personal or positional. to which Sir said, a person may acquire all the positional powers, but a mature person will get things done using personal powers. Then Sir ended the class by saying, then Sir gave the example of APJ Abdul Kalam, who continues to inspire generations even after he was not the president. Then Sir ended the class by saying, it is always better to acquire all personal powers that you don't need positional powers. That is all from my side. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Good morning, sir. Am I audible and visible?
Yes, very much.
Okay. Good morning, all of you. My name is Ashish Kumar Singh. Today, I am going to present a recap of the previous class. The previous class was started with the revision of difference between power and authority. What is power? It is an ability to exert influence on other people. And authority, like power, refers to the other person's potential for influencing others, but in legitimate manner. That is, in a legalized manner. Then we discussed the topic 5 sources of power. The first one of that was reward power. When people have power to influence others' rewards part, that could be monetary or physical atmosphere they are working. We say that a person is exercising reward power. The second one was coercive power. When people have power to influence others in a forceful manner. This power was explained by taking an example of rate boosters. Who are rate boosters? Those people who perform their task more than what have been allotted to them for allotted time. They put influence on other members of the team. The consequence of this is people who are not able to work according to rate of rate boosters. They sometimes have to face rejection from the group, or they are not well accepted in the group. The third source of power comes legitimate power. When people have power to influence others as per legitimacy or position to which person is placed at. This power was explained with the example of a VC of university and departmental chairperson. That is, they have legitimate power to punish or take necessary action if somebody do not work as per rules or guidelines. The fourth power is expert power. Expertise is a source through which person gains power over others. This power was explained with example of financial advisors of organization and lawyer. Financial advisors, they are experts. They provide financial advices to the company independent, and companies dependent on them and take measures and decisions as per their advice. So they are expertise, and this is the power that they are enjoying. Lawyers, they are expert of any legal issues. University have lawyers who help university show path, procedure, and take decisions legally so that university can function smoothly within protocols. The fifth one is referent power. If people think when they are attached to someone important and they have his or her reference to use, then they consider themselves as powerful. Example, secretary of under doctor consider himself or herself powerful because all are dependent on him to have appointment with doctor. Then sir categorize these sources of power into 2 broad divisions, that is personal power and positional power. The reward and power to punish comes under positional power. Then there was a discussion on question that in spite of having same positional power, why some teachers enjoy more powers or liked by more. Then we came up with a conclusion that here personal power plays more important role. With the experience grows expertise, and because of that teacher becomes more valuable and may have more personal power than positional power that confers to his position. Then there was a discussion on referent power, and we came up with 2 interpretation of referent power. First interpretation was when people wish to refer to you as a role model. For example, charismatic personality and a well-known cricketer Sachin Tendulkar. Many of people may follow his hairstyle because over the year he has acquired that charisma. Charisma comes through genuine hard work and achievement. It is acquired because of sustained effort. This grows out of expertise of a person. And second interpretation was in organization there are important power centers, and those working here enjoys more power than those people who are working at other power centers in spite of having same position. Like in AMU, we have VC office as one of the power center. Naturally, all of those who are associated with VC office in one capacity or other, they somehow get more power than the rest. For example, there may be personal secretary of a VC who is at the same level as the other assistant registrar at the university. He may be holding designation of assistant registrar, but he is seemed as having more power because of his association with VC office. Class ended with the discussion which source of power is better, positional or personal. We concluded that a person may have a position and all the powers that comes with the position, but a mature person is the one who is able to get things done with the use of his own personal force, personality, and doesn't rely too heavily on the position he is occupying, because position changes. And the example of Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam was given. Even after he was not the president of the country, he continued to inspire generation till the last day of his life. It is always better to acquire such personal power base that you actually don't need positional power base. Thank you. This was from all my side.
Thank you, Ashish and Zia. Dr. Zareen, would you like to comment on their presentation?
Zia and Ashish, you both did a very good job, and I personally liked both the presentations because you took just the right time to finish all the content. Both of you finished in time, and also the content that you covered was up to the mark. You were content rich. And language wise also, I think Zia and Ashish, you both are good. Ashish, you can maybe practice more when you were speaking with fluency, but still maybe some words I thought that maybe if you practice more you can say them more fluently and more correctly. So otherwise both were very good presentations. I think so.
Yes, I think I also endorse what Dr. Zareen has said. It was well prepared, content was just right, and the content was true to the discussion. That is also one of the feature of both the presentations. So well done, Zia and Ashish.
Thank you, sir.
One thing which Dr. Zareen has pointed out, there are only some words which you tend to pronounce a bit incorrectly. Just become more conscious of them, like for example, people. So,
Okay, sir.
just be, maybe you can have feedback from one of your trusted friends, and or listen to your own tape recorded conversation and see where you need to smoothen out these pronunciation or diction related issues. So otherwise, both you did a good job. Both of you did a good job. Well done.
Thank you, sir.
Now, Dr. Zareen, are we going to talk about line and staff authority today?
Yes, sir.
So will you have some preliminary discussion on that before we build on?
Yes, sir.
Please start.
Okay. Sir, can we also share the two views of formal authority quickly?
Yes, you can.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. So, like we discussed already, what do we mean by power? What authority? So we can quickly share the two views of authority. For example, when it is said that who gives you the right to tell me what to do? So it means that when anybody is telling us to do something, maybe this question arises in our mind that what right that person has to tell us what to do. And in the light of the rights the person has on us, we follow his command. Maybe because maybe if an organization, a person is working as a subordinate and a supervisor is giving him the order, then he knows that okay, this person has the right to tell me what to do, and that is why I am complied to do what the person is asking me to do. So this is one view of the formal authority, which we call as the classical view, where the authority is generated from a high level. That is when the authority is a transfer from the top level, maybe the CEO, or maybe even the Prime Minister of the country, or maybe anybody who is at a higher level. He is transferring the authority, the orders from top to bottom, and transferring to each level down. So that is, we can call it as a classical view. Then there are theorists who have come up with acceptance view, and Chester Bernard, he supported this acceptance view, where it is said that the basis of authority, the how much a person would be accepting the command or would be complying to the command, depends upon how well the subordinate is receiving the order or the command of the person who is giving. So it is more based on the receiver, on the subordinate, rather than the influencer, or we can call the person supervisor or the boss. This is termed as the acceptance view. And here it is said that the authority should be starting from the bottom up, not from top up. Because, for example, let's suppose that there is a factory, okay, and the supervisor comes and starts shouting on the workers. Then, okay, he has the right to do that because of the position he is holding, but maybe the workers do not like that attitude of his, or maybe they are not very happy with his behavior. So it is up to the workers whether they follow his order or they do not follow his order, right? So this, in view of this, we call this as an acceptance view, as a term decide, as a term suggest. Then Chester Bernard also defined 4 conditions under which a person can accept the orders by the supervisors. I can share this slide with you. Okay. Okay, are you able to view the screen? All right. So this is what I just mentioned to you. And there are 4 conditions in which the Chester Bernard have defined that under which conditions a person will comply with a higher authority. A subordinate can comply with the authority under the condition when he can understand and when he can comprehend the communication that has been made to him. If he understands the communication, then he can accept the authority. These four, which I am discussing, these four ideas, these four conditions should be simultaneously occurring. Okay, so first is that he should understand the communication, he should comprehend the communication. Second is that at the time of his decision, when the subordinate is making the decision to either accept the command or to comply with the order, he should believe, he should be believing that the command of the supervisor is not inconsistent with the organizational goals. He should believe that they are consistent with the organizational goals, the targets, or the values of the organizations, and largely the targets and goals of the organization. If the subordinate feels that way, then he could be made to comply with the higher authority. The fourth condition, which is required so that the subordinate or the person can follow the order, is that when he is making decision whether to follow the order or not, he should believe that the order is compatible with his own personal interest, his own personal values. Somehow, some way or the other, the higher authority is also addressing his personal interest, and whatever he shall do, that will satisfy his personal values and interest as well. And the fourth condition, which should also occur simultaneously along with the first three, is that the person should be mentally and physically able to comply with it, to follow the order. So only then he shall be able to accept the authority, should be able to accept the order from the higher authority. So this is what is called as the acceptance view, where the authority generates from the lower level, and only if subordinates accept, then the supervisor is somehow able to exercise the authority. And that is called as a person's area of acceptance. That is how he would be able to follow the command. Is there anything that you have not understood, or anything that you would like to add to it? Am I able to explain? Anyone?
Zareen ma'am, can I give an example over here?
Yes, sir. Please, sir. Yes, sir. Please.
Maybe that will ignite some discussion also. Suppose we are having this class at 8:50 a.m. in the morning. Suppose I say, I pass a command that tomorrow we shall have this class at 2 a.m. in the morning. Now, what do you think about this command? Will you comply?
Yes, sir.
Will we have the same level of acceptance of this command?
No, sir.
No.
Yes, there may be different reactions. Some people may not openly oppose it, but they may just not attend the class. And that would be a kind of indication that they are not following the command. Because if you look at the criteria that Chester Bernard has suggested, one, yes, the order may be clear, but the intent may be unclear to you. Why at 2 a.m. in the morning? Or, you may even say that this is not in line with the organizational interest. I mean, there is a timetable and the range during which the classes are organized. Why somebody should order at such odd hour holding of classes? So, despite all the concern, the respect that you may have for the teacher, but if an order is given which is which doesn't sound reasonable, or as Chester Bernard says, within the zone of acceptance of the person. So actually then this view questions the earlier traditional view, which was the classical view, which says that all orders emanate from top. In fact, some of the rulers, especially the monarchs, they extended this notion to such an extent that they would call themselves as God's vicegerent on earth. They are actually God's representative on the earth. So we have, for example, a king in the Sultanate period, Balban, who used to call himself Zillullah. Zillullah means he is shadow of God on the earth. So in order to lend credibility to the classical view, people even relied on the Almighty. And they said that actually Almighty himself can't come and run the show. So we have been actually sent by Almighty to rule, and because it is Almighty's command, so naturally you have to follow. This was the view which was actually propagated or propounded to support this notion that I am there to command and you are there to obey. But then more democratic thinkers like Chester Bernard and that lady Mary Parker Follett, they said that it is not like that. Actually, the power rests in the subordinates because they willingly accept the command. And you can test it by giving a command which is outside the zone of acceptance. So if you have right to seek command, like I said, I have right to seek your command, but only for reasonable orders, not for unreasonable orders. That I say I feel best at 2 a.m. in the morning, that is why I feel like holding the class at that point of the day. Because this order doesn't sound reasonable, it will be outside the zone of acceptance. So actually it is in you that the power rests, because you willingly concede to my point. And because you find this in the larger interest. Because the interest converge, because of that, I seem to have an authority. But actually the authority rests in you because you willingly accept that. So this is something which I would like to add to the two views that Dr. Zareen has discussed. Anybody would like to comment on this? No?
Sir?
Yes.
Sir, acceptance is also dependent on the what type of command is given.
Yes.
As you are saying that at 2 a.m. you are going to take class, but if you select you at 2 a.m. you are taking the exam of the student, then everyone, maximum of them will join.
I wonder whether this would be, because even the authority giver has to always make an assessment, isn't it? You have seen it in the family also. The parents seem to have a command, isn't it? But do you think they always command in a very demanding manner? Yes, there was a time when parents would say something and everybody would comply. Now there is a lot of persuasion, cajoling, even with the young kids. So it is not that simple. All the time when you are in position of authority, you are required to make a judgment. You are required to make a judgment. Whether the command which I give will be followed in letter or in the spirit or not. And that will happen only when you ensure that your orders are reasonable, are within the zone of acceptance. In fact, now persuasion is the only mode through which you can genuinely seek command of others. What others feel? Which one sounds a more realistic view? The classical view or the acceptance view?
Sir, both are required in the management.
Maybe in some emergency situations when you hardly have time to explain the logic. My personal thought process is that the way the world is evolving, the way families are evolving. Ultimately, if you look at the society, the basic unit which shapes the nature of the society is the family. Yes, till my generation, the command control method of getting things done worked. एक वक्त ऐसा होता था जब घर में मेल मेंबर आता था तो जो हेड ऑफ द फैमिली करता होता था, तो अभी एक आई वाज लिसनिंग टू ए साइकोलॉजिस्ट. I don't know how many of you would agree with this kind of view, but she said कि जब हमारे normally we were not blessed with very many resources, तो नॉर्मली पंखा एक घर में होता था, टेबल फैन, एंड देन आंगन बड़ा सा एक कोर्ट यार्ड होता था घर में, उसी में सबके पलंग लग जाते थे. तो व्हेन शी वाज सेइंग कि मेरे दादा आते थे, who was the head of the family, तो पंखे का वो रोटेटिंग फैन होता था वैसे, लेकिन जब दादा आते थे तो उसका बटन उनकी तरफ कर दिया जाता था एंड फिक्स कर दिया जाता था. The idea was that he is the head of the family. लेकिन अब जो फैमिली स्ट्रक्चर इवॉल्व हो रहा है, अगर पेरेंट्स कैन अफोर्ड ओनली वन एयर कंडीशनर और नॉर्मली बच्चों के कमरे में लगा, तो there is a change in the pattern of society. तो उस पंखे का रुख जो है दादा की तरफ कर देना एक सिंबॉलिक एक्ट. ही इज द सेंटर ऑफ द फैमिली. But now that kind of command and control system is giving way to a more egalitarian, more flexible, more a system where persuasion matters more than the command. Okay, Dr. Zareen. So let us move ahead.
Okay, thank you, sir. Next, we can discuss the line and staff authority, and we can differentiate between the two. See, the line authority works in a line, and the staff authority feeds in the line managers. And we can appreciate, before I differentiate between these two, the line and the staff authority, we can take an example. For example, in our dean office or in our chairman office, there's chairman, there's dean, whom we can consider as a line manager, since they are responsible to meet the organizational goals. So line managers are responsible for meeting the organizational goals to fulfill the organizational targets. And the staff manager, we can say that the staff manager could be maybe the office in charge of the chairman office or dean office, who is providing services or more providing counseling or advice or maybe his technical expertise to the line manager, so that he can work more towards achieving the organizational goal. So I hope you are able to differentiate between the from this example, who could be the line manager and who shall be the staff manager. Now, if we try to differentiate between these two on the basis of their work, on the basis of their activities, like we say that the line manager, he attempts to create value. His objective is to create value, whereas a staff manager, he focuses more on preserving or maybe more on protecting that value. Sometimes when line manager requires any advice, or maybe he's stuck with some paperwork, how to follow that up, then the staff manager could suggest him various ways that maybe this is a tactic which could be followed, or maybe this route can be taken. So staff manager helps him to counsel him so that he may get the ideas. So basically, line manager receives a lot of ideas from staff managers, because line manager, for example, the chairman, maybe the chairman is just appointed, and maybe he is not very much aware of all the paperwork or maybe all the channels, routes which are to be followed. But the staff manager, the maybe office in charge, since he has worked with many chairmen in the past, he could be suggesting many ways through which the chairman can maybe forward those papers or forward those ideas to higher authority. Then also we can say that the line manager, in this case, we are talking about the chairman, he decides what to do, but the staff manager, he recommends, he suggests that what can be done. But of course, the final authority, the final decision is with the line manager, who shall be taking the decision. And the line manager, for example, the chairman in this case, he shall be trying to put all things together on the basis of the advice or counseling that he may be receiving. And what kind of counseling? Like I just mentioned, the staff manager can provide with the technical expertise, the counseling, the advice that on the basis of his past experience, he can offer to the line manager. In any organization, line manager and staff manager both are equally important. both are equally important, whether the person is a line manager or a staff manager, for meeting the organizational goals and to work towards the growth of an organization. Both play a very vital role. But the matter of fact is that sometimes the line authority thinks that he is working what a staff manager is doing. I mean, sometimes line manager gets the idea that maybe he's acting like a staff authority, that maybe the counseling or the technical advice or the expertise which the staff authority is offering, line manager starts thinking that maybe he is himself practicing it, and sometimes staff authority also gets the idea that maybe he is working like a line manager. So this is sometimes a kind of a conflict which occurs, but to be a good staff authority, because the role of a staff authority is also very important in this case. So to be a very efficient or maybe effective staff authority, the staff authority should develop good technical skills, should develop good thinking mindset, and should be able to think strategically, should be able to suggest strategic ideas, or in the line of organizational goals, he should be able to think so that he can offer those kind of valuable advices to the line authority. And he may also start thinking that how to make good decisions, so that he can suggest the same to the line authority. And also he could also think in terms of creating value. For example, what could be a long-term thing for a department to work on. So staff authority should also think on the same lines to be considered as a more valuable asset in the organization. When these two work together, the conflicts also occurs, because of course when a staff authority is suggesting to line authority, or maybe line authority sometimes accepting their ideas or not accepting their ideas, on the basis of that there is sometimes conflicts as well. The time is almost up, so I'll just quickly cover the conflicts. I shall skip this at the moment. So conflicts could be that since staff tends to be younger than the line authority, so sometimes line authority thinks that why should I take his advice? He seems to be younger than me, and I'm more experienced maybe age-wise. So why should I take his idea? This kind of thinking develops in the line managers, and some line managers treat staff managers as people who are just on trial, and they need to prove themselves again and again with every task. So that also is some kind of a mindset that line managers carry. When staff managers are too much suggesting line managers think that they are stepping in their periphery, and that staff is encroaching on their duties. So that also create conflicts between the line and staff managers, because then the senior authorities thinks that subordinates are trying to take the credit, are trying to the credit for the sound advice which they are suggesting. So they prefer not to take that advice, or maybe they take too long to accept their advice. And the conflict which arises is that the subordinates sometimes feel that no matter how good advice I give, or maybe how well I share my ideas, the supervisor is not accepting. He's not giving him actually any authority to to share new ideas or to do something to create value. So these things create conflicts between the line and staff manager. So because of a paucity of time, I think I am supposed to stop here.
No, I think that would be better.
Yes, sir.
We will
Sir, I
continue
already
this.
covered, yes, sir. I already covered most of the conflicts. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.